I'm being joined by one of the pioneers of the mixed martial arts world. He is the UFC Hall of Famer, Ken Shamrock. Ken, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate it. Appreciate the opportunity.
I tell you what, Ken, I really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk to you. As every MMA fan out there may as well say, you've heard it a million times. You're one of the first people we saw compete in the sport, so thank you for giving up your time for everyone to listen to what you've got to say.
Cool, man. I'm very excited about our upcoming event with Valor.
Yeah, so I'll tell you what. I know that's obviously one of our main talking points. Let's jump straight into that for it then. So first of all, what initially gave you the idea to start a bare knuckle? Let's first of all just generally an organisation.
Well, I remember back in the day when I first started out fighting. It was bare knuckle, no holds barred, and I fell in love with it. I mean, it was just so pure, and it just being able to see two guys go in there and actually fight, man. And there were no rules. It was bare knuckle, and my adrenaline was through the roof. It was like nothing that you could ever replace, and I just fell in love with that. And so competing in it was really, almost a dream with the excitement and the way that you went in to fight somebody. It was so pure. And then all of a sudden, this guy Tank Abbott comes in and puts on these 4-ounce gloves and starts knocking people out.
Yeah.
And the organization said, "Hey, what a great idea! We'll be able to put gloves on guys, and they'll be able to come back and fight the same night. You know, if they win and they knock somebody out, we don't got to worry about replacing them with an alternate because they bruised their hand or they fractured their hand or they did something to their hand, and they can come back and fight that same night or a month later." So I just thought that in my mind, I was like, okay, yeah, that made sense until I actually put the glove on and I started fighting with the glove. And then I got it. I was like, this has nothing to do with making it safe for the fighters. It has to do with making it safe for the guys that are winning.
Yeah,
Because
man.
when I put that glove on, man, I could hit guys everywhere in the head. I mean, just literally start drilling guys, not have to be very accurate, just start throwing bombs. And then I wouldn't hurt my hands. So I could actually come back and fight in an hour or a half hour. And so I realized at that time I didn't like it because I felt like it took away the purity of being tough. It took away the purity of man against man.
Yeah.
Whereas you didn't need equipment to make people tough. You had to be tough. You had to be a tough individual without being able to put something on you to make you tougher. And so for me, I didn't like it. And I always said to myself, if I had the opportunity to change that, I would.
And now obviously you've got the opportunity to do it. Now you've seen obviously other organisations are getting bigger and it's becoming a lot more, a lot more watched, a lot more appreciated. Is that what initially gave you the idea to push forward with Valor and start now opposed to a time before?
Yeah, I've always in my mind said that I wanted to make sure I got back to bringing that bare knuckle back because I always felt like that was pure, that was a rush, and even in the beginning, I always remembered people screaming, stand them up," and so I just felt like when I started seeing the direction of the social media sites where there was these street fights happening and getting a million views and then all of a sudden these different other promotions were popping up, bare knuckle promotions were popping up over in England, also here. And they were actually generating more viewerships than the actually MMA world was. And I said, you know what? It's time.
Yeah.
It's time to throw our hat over the fence. It's time for us to get involved, and it's time for us to put on an organization, and not just a bare knuckle organization, but Valor bare knuckle, which in our perspective is about being very, very professionally run with great athletes in the ring, guys that belong there, guys that are tough and guys that have honor, and be able to bring it from that dark to the light. I remember in the earlier days when UFC first came out and that no holds barred, bare knuckle, it was kind of like that underground feeling. It was a spectacle, which there's nothing wrong with that. But sooner or later, you've got to bring it from that spectacle into that respected combat sport. And I felt like in those earlier days, which I was a part of being that spokesperson during that time, was trying to educate people on what it is they were watching and the understanding of what it was, so that we could go ahead and rise above the spectacle and become professional combat sport. And so I think that's where we're at now, right now with the bare knuckle. is that it's at that stage of a spectacle where people want to watch it, but we've got to bring some professionalism to it, some respectable um, rules in combat to it, so that we're able to launch ourselves into that category of being a respectable combat league. So therefore, we put Valor together to do that, and we have a very well professional team from the top to the bottom. We've got the best fighters I think that we could have in a tournament. We went back to old school where we thought we'd crown our champion in that tournament style type heavyweight tournament. So, well, I mean, like I said, it was something that we had really thought about. We really wanted to make sure that if we were getting into the bare knuckle, that we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just something we would throw together and that it would be just an event. We wanted to bring it to that respectable level, from the dark to the light.
And do you feel like you've going with the name Valor, seeing as all the other organisations are all got the name bare knuckle actually in their title? Do you feel the name Valor, like you said, as well as being showing the honour and respect of it all, do you really feel that's going to help you stand out as well with the name?
Yeah, I think that it's just no different than anything other sport. I mean, you have the actual event, which is obviously bare knuckle, but then at the same time, you've also got to brand your league. You can't just say, "Hey, we're bare knuckle fighting," because that's just not a name. That's what we're doing.
Yeah.
So I felt like we had to have a name that was going to match what we were doing, that would bring some professionalism, some respect to it, and I thought Valor was a great name.
No, and I think so as well. It really stands out, and I love the design you've done with the logo for the company and everything like that. And obviously, Ken, I'm not trying to blow your own trumpet here, but having a name such as yourself, behind the organisation, how's it been? You haven't even had your first event, and how much interest are you get having being shown already? Because over in the UK, we're talking about it already.
Yeah, it's crazy too, because I think it has to do with the team members we have and the connections that we all have gained over the 80 years of experience that we have combined in our team. There's a lot of connections there, and so therefore, when we decided to launch and start doing the press releases and being able to show the fighters that we have and be able to have the connections to the different people when it comes to the direct TV, Dish Network, all major cable companies, and then of course for digital, we got Fight TV. So being able to have all those that much experience on our team, we would be able to reach out and get a lot of attention because of all the connections we have within our team. So I really believe that that's a team effort. We've all had our part in making Valor as popular as it is up to this date without even putting on a fight.
I know. It's absolutely crazy, and obviously in the UK, we're talking about it, and we've got obviously some our guys going over there. We've got Mark Godby, the champion of BK, the UK organisation. We've got James McSweeney, legendary. He was in the UFC, in the Ultimate Fighter and things as well. So it's great to see that we've got some of our guys going over there to try and make a name for themselves again.
Yeah, that was important too. We want to make sure that we have countries represented because bare knuckle is a universal combat. So it was important for us to be able to showcase just people from different countries, but at the same time, different styles, like for MMA, boxing, kickboxing. So we just felt like it's an interesting concept when you look at it, at least for me, and I hope it is for everyone else. But it almost goes back to the earlier days of the UFC when especially when I fought in it, it was bare knuckle, no rules, but you literally had style against style.
Yeah.
Well, this has got that same kind of thing to it because you've got especially in our co-main event, we got a former world champion pro boxer in Ishii Smith and Esteban Payan, who has got a pretty good MMA resume. So when you look at that matchup, you've got really a boxer against an MMA guy.
Yeah.
Which one is going to transition into bare knuckle? A lot of people say, well, I think it's going to be the boxer. Well, you got to remember this. Fighting is about being able to not get hit. When you think about boxing is a sport in which sometimes guys get hit and they just shake it off or they brush it off or they'll slip it.
Yeah.
You can't do that in bare knuckle. You can't take a jab in bare knuckle and then throw a combination after you take a jab. It's just not going to happen like that because those jabs count a lot more than they do in boxing. So having those big, 8-ounce or 12-ounce gloves that you have on when you're boxing and you're able to slap punches away or be able to, do the pickaboo with them and not have to move your feet as much when you get tired. Well, you can't do that in bare knuckle. So it's interesting to see whether or not MMA translates into bare knuckle or boxing translates into bare knuckle.
Yeah.
So it's going to be fun to watch, like I said, because it's so new. You got guys that have 27-4 or 30-3 or whatever, some crazy records in boxing and MMA, right?
Yep.
But when they walk into our event and they get up on that screen and they put their record up there, it's going to be 0-0, or unless you're Mark Garber, it'll be 2-0, right? But
Yeah.
it's so young. It's like the early UFCs when guys were stepping in there. They were 0-0, or they were 2-1, or they were 3-0. It is crazy to see this happen over again with as much experience and as far as we've been when it comes to combat sports, to now be back at 0-0 again, starting something that I believe is just its own beast.
Yeah. And it must be an amazing feeling for yourself because you were there the early days of, as you said, your bare knuckle fighting and the early days of the UFC, and now you're starting your journey again, but being a promoter now of another great organisation. And like you said, it's like the old days. Instead of karate against a wrestler, now we've got the MMA guy versus the boxer bare knuckle. And what people don't understand is with bare knuckle, like you explained, is you can't just throw anything, because with bare knuckle you have to be so pinpoint accurate. Otherwise, you're going to break bones, right?
That's exactly right. Or even if a guy like Ishii Smith, who's used to being able to do the peekaboo and the glove slips in and it just touches him, it's no big deal, right? They just do the
Yeah.
peekaboo. Guys still body shots and they kind of sit there and they counter them. Well, in boxing, man, that's okay. But in bare knuckle, man, you can't allow them to touch you because the hands are more effective instantly than they are in boxing, because it can cause a cut or it can cause a bruise, or you can actually break someone's jaw or break someone's nose or cut them over the eye. And these are all things that people look at instantly as being more dangerous. And to me, it's funny, or not funny, but it's confusing to me, I guess I would put it, is that showing people that get cuts or broken noses or even broken jaws, and all of a sudden people go, man, somebody's going to get killed in this sport. It's just so confusing to me that people look at that and all of a sudden they make that judgment. And the reality of it is this: he took 10 shots and he went down, or he got cut, or he got his jaw broke.
Yeah.
He didn't take 100 shots before he fell to the mat and got back up and withstood the punishment and then died. So this is a much different sport and event that people have to understand and be educated on what's happening. So I'm really excited, and it is our responsibility as promoters to be able to educate the fans on what they're watching so that they have a better understanding of what it is, so that they don't freak out when something like that happens. They really understand, oh, okay, well, it's a broken jaw, it'll heal, or it's a cut, it'll heal. There's a lot of blood, but it'll heal, as opposed to 10 years down the road, boxing or MMA, where you're taking 100 to 200 shots per fight, and then 10 years down the road, you can't remember who your kids are. So to me, I think the instant damage and stuff like that, that heals, which is the scar tissue in the bones, I would much rather, as a fighter, have to deal with rather than deal with brain damage.
No, it's true. And what I find is really interesting, if you see the sort of timeline of events since the first UFCs, you know, everyone was boycotting UFC. It was banned in 49 states when you were competing in it still, you know, and you know, everyone was like, oh, it's a blood sport, it's just street fighting, blah blah blah. Now look how well accepted the sport is. You know, MMA as a whole, people are starting putting their kids in it from an early age now. You know, back in the day, many people wouldn't think that, would they?
No, and that's where we're at right now with bare knuckle.
Exactly.
Is that when it happens in the ring, their first statement is going to be, see, I told you somebody's going to get hurt. Well, let me tell you something to all those people that say those things. It is a combat sport, and it will have some sort of accidents or people that happen to get hurt. It is a combat sport. It's like football and anything else you go into. There is a risk, but you minimize your risks. As a fighter or as a person getting in there, you look to see which ones that you look at and go, okay, which one minimizes my risk for the most damage? And me personally as a fighter, and I've done it all, I would much rather have a career in bare knuckle than I ever would with a 4 ounce glove on or a boxing glove on.
No, that's fair enough. And we know you're not someone to we know you're not someone who likes to stop fighting and competing. You know, you're only competing a few years ago. You thought about doing it yourself again, Ken, or are you done with that now, the combat game?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm president of
Yeah.
Valor. Okay, all that means is that I'm the I'm the least valuable person when it comes to the knowledge of how everything works. I'm the one that is they put in front and does all the talking, and they tell me what to say, and and so I'm the character. But yeah, the guys behind me, we've got a great team behind us, and I'll tell you what, they're the ones that mastermind of putting the show on, getting the pieces put together. Like I said, we have gotten Direct TV, Dish Network, all the major cable companies, and then of course digital is Fight TV. Man, the connections that we have on our team is just second to none, and that's the reason why we are where we are right now to this day. Everybody on our team has something to offer to make us better.
Yeah, mate, and they're definitely doing the right things because, as you said, you haven't even had one event yet, and everyone's already talking about it, and we're all looking forward to it. And especially, as I said, in the UK, we can't wait to see our UK guys in there as well. You know, we're really going to be supporting them, and definitely can't wait. So, as you were talking about educating people about the bare knuckle world, for people who don't know about it as much yet, they've just seen the clips on YouTube or whatever. Can you explain the rules of it? So, the rules of bare knuckle boxing compared to boxing, standard stand-up boxing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but I can
But
tell
the
you what.
basics, yeah.
Yeah, ours will be this. There will be no tape on the hands, only on the wrist. I know a lot of these other organizations allow them to tape the thumb and up the hand. I feel that that's not fair. I want God-given talent. I want guys to go in there and fight with their God-given ability. And I don't want any tape or anything in there that's going to make them better. You fight with what you got. If your hands are brittle, why are you in bare knuckle? You can't say you're a bare knuckle fighter if you can't fight with bare knuckle. To me, that's the crazy part when I look at guys that saying they fight bare knuckle and they're not fighting bare knuckle. They've got tape on their hands, and to me, that's not the same. So we want to make sure that these guys go in there and they fight, and we get the toughest guys with the God given talent that go in there and can say, "Hey, I am the bare knuckle champion," and they are, and because of how they're fighting and the way they're fighting, they are. So we got 3 3-minute rounds. We're not going to let them grab or hold or hold on to the head or to grab anybody. When you're in a clinch, man, you better not be holding on or you're going to be warmed. So we want guys to
Okay.
be able to fight. We don't want them to hold on to them like they did in boxing where they grab a head or they grab them, try to push them off and all that other stuff. If you're in a clinch, man, you keep your hands closed. And then you can bump them with shoulders or whatever, do that, but do not grab them because then that causes fingers to end up in people's eyes. And so your hands got to stay closed. And so that's what we want. We want to be able to make sure that people get to go in and watch a fight. When we say it's bare knuckle, we want it to be bare knuckle.
And that's what it should be. And you're right, there is a lot of different companies, yeah, taping up and things like that. And what was your main issue with the guys obviously wearing tape? Is it just because you want them to have used their God-given talent, or do you feel it just doesn't? It gives maybe a slightly unfair advantage. What do you feel on that?
Yeah, I think it gives them support.
Yeah.
And to me, we're talking about bare knuckle. If it was boxing, okay. If it was MMA, okay. But we're saying this is bare knuckle. And so people want to go, oh yeah, okay, well, just the knuckles are just exposed and it's bare knuckle. That's not fair. That's not true. Bare knuckle is about fighting with your bare hand. You don't get to put something on your hand to make it have more support so you don't hurt your hand. If you can't do it that way, then you're not a bare knuckle fighter.
Yep, that's it. And so it's interesting. So it's actually quite different from the other organisations we've seen. You're not going to allow the clinch. 'Cause I think in the other organisations you can hold behind the head and land strikes at the same time, maybe a few. But as I said, you want to see it as pure stand-up boxing. And is it going to be knockdown 10 count and things like that?
Yeah, that's stuff that you'd have to get with our rules. I'm pretty sure it is, but all the details on that is stuff that I don't get into.
Okay.
But no, yeah, there won't be holding. There's no holding and rabbit punching. And man, if you're there, this is bare knuckle fighting. So fight. Don't be holding on or grabbing someone's head to try to punch them. Use your hands. That's what they're used for, is to punch. So don't hold on.
It's fair enough. And what I love about how your passion for bare knuckle boxing as well is, Ken, obviously because you're very obviously from the old school days of the bare knuckle style. But if you actually, when people look at your MMA career, they might think he loves his bare knuckle fighting, but God, he knows how to tap blokes out as well, doesn't he?
But if you knew me before I started into my MMA career and
Yeah.
the no hold bar career, I was known as One Punch Shamrock, and I fought in tough mans, 3 different tough mans. And of course, I wore gloves, but I knocked everybody out. I also fought in street fights where I was making money, fighting outside of bars, and that was basic bare knuckle, called it squatting. And so I would fight guys and I'd make money, and so I was always known as One Punch Shamrock. And before I got into the MMA world, so that's where my roots came from early on, and people don't know that because I when I got into the no holes barred, just like when I'm talking about analyzing what I would want to get into if I had a choice of the 3, boxing, MMA, or bare knuckle, I analyzed it and looked and said, you know what, my career in being in that more safe environment, I would be bare knuckle. I believe I would have a much safer and a better career in bare knuckle just because of what it is. And I did the same thing early on, when I was fighting and all that. I did the same thing early on when I was squatting and fighting out there. I made a choice on what I wanted to do early on, and I felt like it was so much safer than when I put a glove on. It was like
Yeah.
unbelievable being able to strike and hit people from wherever I wanted to hit them, and I wouldn't hurt my hand, as opposed to how accurate you had to be with the experience that I had in bare knuckle. It took away the actual professionalism of guys that really knew how to strike.
Well, and what's if you don't mind me asking, Ken, what sort of age were you at this time? You started this sort of competing.
Oh, I was what, 24?
Okay.
24? Yeah, 24, 25.
Yeah, were you doing any sort of like discipline before that at all? Any sort of combat sport, any sort of training, and anything else?
Well, what I did was boxing, and I did a little kickboxing, and I wrestled. I was a really good wrestler, so I had the understanding of being able to grapple, not the submission stuff, but I knew cross spaces and chokes and things like that, but not to the level I did when I got into the submissions. But when I first got into actual no holds barred early on, I analyzed. I knew how to strike bare knuckle. That's what I did first.
Yeah.
But I looked at it and I said, man, being able to take a guy to the ground, there's no lucky punch. You're not going to get a lucky submission. So I weighed the odds of like, well, okay, which one is better for me to be able to do something without somebody getting lucky or taking the most damage? And I knew right away I was taking guys to the ground because I could shoot and learning the submissions so I could submit them. So I learned that right away and understood right away that my chances of succeeding were a lot higher than me standing up and banging with somebody, because anybody can get a lucky punch and you go down, but you can't get lucky on a submission. So that's why I end up going into that submission direction rather than the striking direction, because I weighed out the odds on what would be safer for me.
Well, it makes sense, doesn't it? And it's interesting to hear you say that back then. Like you actually looked at it, because it sounds like when you talk about all these different sports, you always seem to look at what dangers is it going to give me and what effect is it going to have me long term. And it's
Yeah,
obviously a very good way to
also
look at things.
yeah, and also too, how I look at being able to be successful. If there is an opportunity for me to take someone to the
Yeah,
ground and submit them, and it's bare knuckle, then I'm going to take them to the ground, because I realize the damage you would take being able to stand toe to toe with somebody, as opposed to grabbing, taking the ground, and submitting them, right?
yeah.
So, but we can't do that today, right? I mean, bare knuckle, there's none of that, right? You're either wearing 4-ounce gloves in MMA, or you're not going to do bare knuckle. So now we're starting bare knuckle and stand up. To me, it's a much safer, in the MMA world that you look at right now, with those 4-ounce gloves on and guys trying to take you down. With a 4-ounce glove on, you're able to hit them in the head anywhere you want, is much more dangerous than being able to stand toe to toe with somebody and fighting with a no gloves on and being able to fight bare knuckle. You're taking less damage. So to me, that's just a no brainer. And I've always analyzed everything as I've always gone through my career, trying to figure out which ones I would be more successful at in whatever fight it was, and what the best direction to go to win those fights and take the less damage. So to me right now, looking at the way MMA is today, looking at the way boxing is, and looking at bare knuckle, in my mind, and I've done it all, you are much, much more safer going into bare knuckle than you are any of those other events.
Hence why you've started up a bare knuckle organisation and not an MMA one, correct?
Exactly.
That's it, mate. And do you really think that mentality you've had going through and that being able to analyse and your success and everything, do you believe that's how you had such a lengthy career? You managed to go on for such a long time in your career.
I do. I think that I understood how to be aggressive and how to go after people, but how to not take as much damage.
No, that's it. And you were, as I said, you were fantastic. You had fantastic takedowns, you know. And where was it? Obviously, if people don't know, where and when did you then learn to adapt your submission game from just the basic wrestling submission to full on submissions?
Yeah, I went over to Japan with um, Masakatsu Funaki. He really taught me a lot. But Fujiwara helped me a little bit too. And then Carl Gotts had come in and worked with us a little bit. But Sammy's the one that actually found me. Dean Malenko,
Yeah.
who was they were training at Dean Malenko's dad's gym. He brought me in, and I did a tryout. And after I did the tryout, Sammy liked me and then brought me to Japan. And after that, I never looked back.
Oh, that's it, mate. So when was that? So because you were doing because Dean Malenko wasn't he involved in WWF as well? Am I thinking the right
Yeah,
thing?
Dean had done a little bit of that shoot style, but just wasn't something that he really enjoyed. But he turned me on to it, and I went and tried out. Next thing I was over in Japan, and I was fighting over there. And so I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the style. I enjoyed the contact. And so that's why I succeeded at it, is because I really did enjoy it.
So was that when you were fighting in Pride and Pancrase? Was Pancrase in Japan? It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was before Pride. Pride hadn't come out yet when I first started over there. When we had first started our first couple of shows, UFC wasn't even around yet. And so it started in '89 and '90.
Okay, cause I know it was I knew in the records in MMA obviously you've been fighting since 1993, but it's interesting to learn that you've been watching someone your whole life and I've learned something myself. So no, so yeah,
Right?
a long career as I was saying, even longer than I thought initially. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah, I had a long one.
well for me, Ken, I'm not trying to be a fanboy, but I've watched you from when I was younger, when I was younger I remember watching you in WWF, putting ankle locks on, the world's most dangerous man. And then as I got older, started watching UFC, watching the originals of UFC and things like that. It's just so interesting to now see how you've gone forward now to start your own organisation, which is Bare Knuckle, and you've done it all from all your experiences. You say all those experiences of WWF to Bare Knuckle to fighting in Japan to fighting in UFC. As all those experiences just led to this moment, like pushed you to do what you're doing now.
Yes, it does. And like I said, I fell in love with it early on, and just didn't feel right that they had taken away the purity of that no holds barred sport, that
Yeah,
bare knuckle. That was real. And that's what people really fell in love with when we first came out, was that there was no gloves. And people fell in love with that. And then, of course, the clubs came on and they actually made them smaller. And then, it was just basically force fed to everybody that, hey, these were safer. And the reality is it wasn't true. But it turned into a $4 billion business. So, they did something right.
yeah.
But it wasn't the way they sold it. I promise you, it wasn't because it was safer. It was because they just knew that the guys that were winning needed to come back and fight again, because that's what people wanted to see, were the guys winning.
That's it. That's it. And I say it's great. And I said it's really good to see him back. And how do you feel as well, though? Even looking back now at your UFC career, you're still one of the original Hall of Famers. Is that still something you're really proud of?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I know you hear me talk about bare knuckle and my love for it, but that doesn't mean I didn't enjoy my MMA
Oh yeah,
career.
of
I did.
course. Yeah,
I did. It just wasn't. It just didn't have the same effect on me that the bare knuckle did. But nevertheless, I still enjoyed it, and I still had a great career, and I enjoyed it all the way. So, I just want to make people understand that. But it wasn't the same. I didn't have the same effect on me as bare knuckle did, where it was just felt more pure and more real.
That's fair. And do you know what? You're actually mirroring, it's actually quite similar. I was talking to James McSweeney the other day on chatting to him, and he said quite a very similar thing. He says like bare knuckle, I'm undefeated in my own eyes, but in the MMA world, it said it was slightly different and really felt at home in the bare knuckle world. And that must come down to said having to actually really rely on those precision strikes, because if you can just throw like anything, it's a whole different ball game, especially with kicks and takedowns and things like that. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how the first event goes. I'm sure it's going to go really well. You're getting loads of views already, and it hasn't even started. So that's always a good thing. But going back to the organisation, did you have a lot? Did you before you started it, did you have an idea of who you wanted to join your organisation, like fighter wise?
I didn't know. I mean, I knew the kind of fighter I wanted. I wanted guys that had some courage, some guys that were respectable, but guys that they had no quit in them. Like they were here to fight, and they weren't going to complain. That this is bare knuckle, man, and it's just two guys get in there and you fight it out. And when it's over, you can be upset. Nobody likes to lose, but
Yeah,
you hold your head high and you take it like a man and you move on. So there, like I said, there were characters that we went after. We wanted guys that didn't cut easy. We wanted guys that we knew that would come out and fight again. That had backgrounds of guys that showed up to fight. They didn't miss a lot of fights or miss a lot of opportunities to fight because whatever down the road, they end up not fighting. So we got guys in here that we know that are going to fight and they're going to put on a good show. We got Mark Godbeer versus Jack May. I love that one because
yeah,
those guys are hands. We got Mighty Mo versus Romero Sokoju. Those guys, man, we know what they can do. I mean, they've got
exactly.
a tremendous background in the MMA world, so that's gonna be a fun one. But hey, the one that I always look at that just might be sneaky, man, is that James McSweeney. He's
He
against
is.
Brian. Those guys are sneaky, man. And they could, if one of these guys actually break a hand or does something like that because they get too wild, man, he could slide in there and he could win this thing. So it's fun to watch. I think the two guys here that I look at, I mean, I think Mighty Mo and Romero Sokoju are really good. Jack May is also good, but does the guys that actually have bare knuckle experience, do they have the advantage here? See, that's in my mind what I'm thinking because I know the difference between bare knuckle and 4-ounce gloves and 12-ounce gloves. It's huge. It's a whole different world. So if these guys have actually two guys got some experience in this, being from England, do they have the advantage?
That's it. And I don't want to answer that question right now because I had a chat with James McSweeney on interview, so I'll let them all hear the answer because he can give you a bit of a background on what he's been doing. So I'm feeling quite positive that McSweeney's going to do quite well, but that's not me just being biased. I'd like to see what happens. There is a lot of backyard stuff in the UK as well, which isn't. I know it's not official, and what I mean, but it's not. It's just recorded and things like that. But we have had the UK organisation, so there obviously is in the UK, there obviously is a large following of it, and a lot of people are interested in it. So yeah, I'm just as interested as you, Ken. Are we going to have the more experienced guys from here, or is it going to be the guys in the States or from that part of the world? That must make it like much more interesting. Just like the first day of UFC, is that guy going to be that disciplined, etc., etc. It's almost country versus country and style versus style. Would you say?
I love it. Yeah, to me that's exciting because I talked about my co-main event too, Izzy Smith and Esteban Payan. I mean, you got MMA against boxing. I mean, that's always been like a rivalry with boxing and MMA. They're always saying, well, we could beat you guys if you didn't take us down.
Yeah,
We're so, but maybe in boxing, right? Yeah, okay, I get it. That's what you do. But how about if we change the game up for both of you, like for MMA and the boxing? How about we do it with no gloves? And now you guys are both 0-0, and let's see which one of these transitions into bare knuckle.
and yeah, it's just gonna be so interesting to find out. It's literally like myself being able to live through like watching the days of the original like UFC days, but we're seeing it in the bare knuckle world, and I'm really glad I get to be a part of it and like get to enjoy it as well, Ken. So obviously, thank you very much for putting that on. But we have seen, I don't want to talk about other organisations too much, but we have seen obviously a boxer face an MMA guy, Paulie Malignaggi, and
Right.
look, that didn't quite work out. They keep trying to box him, it doesn't work in bare knuckles. So that was quite a prime example, would you say?
Yeah, because I think boxers go in there and one, they got the bigger gloves to try to defend a little bit, so they don't have to use their footwork as much. But in bare knuckle, it's a lot faster. You have to use your footwork, and every punch counts. So not like in boxing where you could take a couple rounds to get warmed up. Man, by that time the fight's over in bare knuckle. So it's fast. It's really fast. So it is an adjustment, but it's also an adjustment for any combat sport because bare knuckle is its own beast. So anybody that goes into this coming from whatever discipline that it is, bare knuckle is its own beast. People have to learn that this isn't the same or even close to the same of anything they've done.
I know, it's going to be amazing. It's going to be so interesting to see the outcome. It's just like an experiment, almost such a thing, which has been tried and tested, but this is going to be a whole different experiment. The way you've set things up with the opponents as well, it's definitely going to be a night of fireworks, and it's going to be incredible. Did you have a lot of applicants as well for this, by the way? Did you have a lot of people applying through your website? Because I see there's an application form on there.
Yeah, it's gradually grown and it keeps growing, obviously because of the attention. Because like I said, we want to make sure that people understand who we are. We're Valor BK. We're not an organization that does bare knuckle. We're Valor BK, and we put on bare knuckle fights. And we want to make sure that we're clear on that and that we're separated from that because we want people to know that this is very well run. We've got the funding behind us. We're in it for the long haul. We're not going anywhere. And when people get done watching our event, they're going to realize that the things they've been watching in the past, it's not professional. What we're doing is at a very high level with very, very competent people involved in our organization. Like I said, we got over 80 years of experience with the team members that we have on our staff. And to be able to put together a card with all of that experience, Richard Goodman has done a great job putting this card together, along with all the other people we have on our team to chime in on being able to help support what he's doing. So it's really been an awesome journey. I really, really love the direction we're going, and I love all the connections that we're able to pull from our team. It's just been unbelievable.
I know it's all just fallen so nicely into place for you, and you're obviously a very well respected man, Ken, and well rightly you should be. You've done a lot for the sport, and you obviously understand what you're talking about. You're not going out there just to see people brawl. You want people to be safe, and you want them to do it in the safest way possible. Because I'm sure you've got a lot of medical team just in case, and it sounds like you've got everything set up and ready to go, Ken. So is there much more left to do, or are we pretty much done for the
I just want to make sure that we also get to say thank you to the fans for being able to get involved and actually match our fighters up on the first round. That's something we did with Forbes, where we actually had the fans vote on what matchups they wanted in that first round heavyweight tournament. So it was fun to watch because I had my own thoughts on it. And I know a lot of other guys did too, Richard Goodman and a few other guys. We all kind of had the same matchups that we wanted to have happen.
Yeah.
We were a little bit worried about letting the fans vote on it, but we said, you know what, let's trust it. I think the fans all see the same thing we see. And so the fans voted on it. And so they came up with the exact, which is the exact kind of setup that we would have done in the first place. So congratulations. We really appreciate the fans for being involved and being able to come out and vote for us and putting that first round together. It's going to be fun to watch this thing play out.
Did you actually get a final number on how many votes came through, by the way?
I think we did, but I don't have it on me.
Okay.
I should get that. That way I can actually tell people. But it was pretty good. We did well.
That's amazing. I said all this before, again, I repeat myself, before we've even had the first event. And it just shows how well your team are doing with advertising and getting the word out there. And I'm sure as hell doing the same thing as well. I'll be spreading all this around the UK and want people to make sure they know what's going on. Because, Ken, you're a huge name all around the world, especially in the UK. So people are definitely going to be tuning into this. And as I said, in the UK, hopefully you get on some of the UK channels over here. But we can still watch it on Fight TV, yeah?
Yeah, we'll have it. We'll have it there. I just don't know what it is. If you guys look it up, Valor BK, and it'll be in either DirecTV, Dish Networks, all the major cable companies, and in Fight for the digital, it's Fight TV. So yeah, if you look it, I'm sure it's there. And if people will look it up, it's Valor BK. We will have it in. And I'm not sure because we've hired actually an individual person to go out there and make sure that whatever network, especially in England, because we know it's big over there, that they have the network that's going to provide it for the people in England.
Yeah, no, I really hope we get the opportunity to watch it. If not, I'll definitely be streaming it on the on Fight TV, as you were saying, on the online. But either way, I'll be watching it one way or the other, and I can't wait for it. It'll be a late one though, obviously. It'll be in the UK. I'm guessing you're starting what time's your event start? I'm guessing it's around 1 a.m. in the UK.
Yeah, it's I believe it's the doors open at 6:30, and I think that our pay-per-view launches at 9, I
Okay.
believe.
That's fine then. That's not bad
So,
then. If we get up at 5 a.m. then we can start watch we can watch the pay-per-view and then catch up on the prelims before. Perfect.
it starts. I'm sorry, I think it starts at 7. Doors open at 6:30. Starts at 7:30. The first pay-per-view event.
Oh mate, it's going to be incredible. It's going to be incredible. And can I ask who's headlining the event, or the headline be obviously the tournament final?
Yeah, it's a tournament final, but the co-main event also too. I think that's one to watch, which is Izzy Smith and that's one paying boxer against MMA. But yeah, it will be the heavyweight tournament. The guys that win the first round, that will be our main event. But it's a co-main event, so I think that our co-main event is going to also be very exciting.
And have you got any sort of obviously having just make sure I'm not getting this wrong. Obviously in the tournament they'll be fighting more than once that night, correct?
Twice, they'll fight twice.
Yes, sorry, I just want to make sure that I'm getting that out there correctly. They'll be fighting twice. Have you got some sort of backup plan if there is an injury to any of these fighters if they do win and they're injured? Is there any sort of contingency?
Yes, we got James McSweeney and Brian Heaton, which they'll fight each other. Whoever wins that will be the first alternate up.
Okay. Okay, perfect. And obviously, a lot of people will be thinking that, but let's not hope that. Hope everyone comes out safe and healthy, and they can continue to
Right.
fight.
Yeah.
It's been a proven thing, haven't we? We've seen it in the past. It's proven it can be done. You know,
Oh,
how many times have you done it, Ken? Like, what's the most you fought in one night before?
oh, 4 times.
Oh,
4 times.
jeez.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be done. That was bare knuckle too. So it can be done if the fighter goes in and they understand that it's a controlled aggression, and that they're not there to try to knock the guy on the first round or to try to force a knockout. I think that once the guy with the mental strength knows going in how to fight, you'll get through it and he'll win. But it's the ones that panic and they start throwing those bombs and they catch the head wrong and then they've got a hurt hand and now they're fighting at a real bad disadvantage.
That that is it. And sorry to go back in time when you were talking a second ago. You were talking about when you were fighting in the no holds bar before everything. What was the nickname they called you? One Punch Shamrock, wasn't it?
Yeah, one punch Shamrock. Yep.
That's it. Yeah, yeah. See, I never knew that. When did the world's most dangerous man come in? Sorry, I forgot to ask you that. Who gave you that one?
I think that came in 90 or late 93 or 90 early 94.
Yeah. Who gave you that? Was that someone who gave it to you? Or did you just hear
It
it?
was done, it was done with the TV station, well, with the world's most dangerous animal and places and food and person.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting though. Yeah, so it's always interesting to see where the nicknames come from. It's one of my favourite things to find out about you guys. So back in that sort of time then, so back in like the early 90s, you opened up your own gym as well, didn't you? Was it the Lion's Den, if I remember rightly?
I did, yeah. I opened it up because I couldn't find places to train at here in the States. I was always having to stay over in Japan to train.
Yeah.
And I had to figure out a way to train here because I spent too much away with my family. So I ended up just starting to train guys and start teaching them so that I had guys I could train with.
No, so that's why I was actually going to ask that question next. Like, why did you decide to open your own gym and things like that? And you produced some great guys from there as well. Multiple champions, Roy Nelson, Maurice Smith as well. So and Frank obviously as well. So definitely had some good fights come out of there. So is it nice to see how those guys progressed further on their career later on?
Yeah, even Guy Mesger, you talk about Guy Mesger too. He
Sorry,
had a tremendous Jerry Bolander. I mean,
oh sorry, I should say there's plenty more. Yeah, there is plenty more.
there's a lot of guys, man, that had done very well with the way that we had trained. It was tough, and there was no roadmap on how to train guys. So, me just being the kind of the tough guy that I was, I always just thought, well, let's emulate what we're going to do in the ring, and let's just bring 3 or 4 different guys to come in fresh doing it. And that's what we did, man. And we were tough, man. Everybody in there got tough.
So, and I was just looking. I recommend people. I didn't give it enough credit. If you look online, you can easily see the list goes on of multiple champions in there in different disciplines. And you know, it's fantastic to see, Ken, that people have followed so well in your footsteps, because a lot of people probably don't know about these people who trained in your gym, you know, and it's nice for people to understand that and where you've come from and where how you've led all the way to now. I'm sure a lot of people don't need telling, you know, and a lot of people know who you are, but it's really interesting to hear your story, how you got to where you are, and no, I really appreciate you, you know, letting it all out there, mate. Thanks very much.
Yeah, listen, I appreciate you. I got another interview here at 1. I got about 12 minutes.
No, that's right. So what I was going to say to you is, obviously, Ken, thank you very much. It's been an absolute honour to speak to you. So seeing as you've got another interview soon, is before we leave, is there anyone you obviously haven't mentioned already that you want to say thank you to, who's helped Valor to get where it is today, and obviously let everyone know where they can watch it, when, and how to follow you on social networks as well.
Yeah, I just like I said, get a shout out to our team. You know, we got Des Woodruff, who is my business partner. Then we've got Todd Middendorf, who is our VP of operations. We've got Richard Goodman, who is the matchmaker, has done a great job on the card. And then, of course, Jen Wink, who is the PR. She worked with UFC during the heyday and built them up. Now she's working for us. And we have a great support team around us. There's many more people that are still working. But yeah, those are the ones I think that that I can mention, and can't mention everybody, but there's a
No,
lot of people behind the scenes that are also working real hard. So like I said, uh, I tend to get all the credit because I'm the one talking and I'm the face. But I'm telling you right now that without the team that I had behind me and the people supporting me and working behind the scenes, we wouldn't be where we're at. So I just want to make sure to shout out to them, and that we've got something special here and we can all be proud of it.
definitely, and I really recommend everyone go out there and make sure you watch the fight and you tune in, pay for the pay-per-view. It'll be very 100% worth it. And also make sure you go online and check out Valor on all their Facebook pages and Instagram. There's a lot of good work being done by their social guy there, so a lot of information of all the fighters. Go and check it out. And Ken, just from me again, I really want to say thank you very much. I really appreciate you're a busy man. There's a lot going on in your life, so thank